Okay, so we are live. Um, Starting off by saying ETM Hotep, which means welcome and peace. Today is Wednesday, April 28th, 2021. And it being Wednesday, that means that today is Divine Words Wednesday. So here we are again. We're kicking it off. And as we said last week, we're going to do our best to be consistent. So here we are for another Divine Words Wednesdays. And you are tuned in to the Sesh Netcher YouTube channel. My name is Ujao Menib Idimaat, and I also have some others on the panel. And once I get over there, so whoever's on the panel, if you care to unmute your mic and just introduce yourself.
ETM Hotep. This is Chris.
Hotep Betty Ren Emiket. My name is Emiket.
ETM Hotep. This is game.
All right. Okay, so I think I figured out this combination of Zoom and YouTube, because if you have your camera on, I noticed that it will show you as an image in YouTube. Otherwise, it will show whoever's talking. All right, I already knew that. No, but I just switched it. So okay, but anyway, so welcome and appreciate anybody who's tuned in. So listen, if you're tuned in already, again, appreciate it. But the fact that you're tuned in means that you are subscribed or you've hit the notification, you got a notification, and so you tuned in, and really appreciate that. But remember as well, we're, like I said, we're gonna do our best to be consistent on Wednesday. So it's gonna be like clockwork, Wednesdays and Fridays, Divine Words Wednesdays and Freestyle Fridays. All right, so we're gonna at least get things going twice a week. All right, and be consistent. And as far as what we do, we enjoy the crowd participation. We do our best to maintain a learning environment, a very professional environment, and we share information, and we would love for other people to share information with us as well. So we have that, interaction between the chat and the panel here. Now there's a delay, so sometimes it gets a little challenging for us to communicate. But towards the end of our shows, or after the bulk of whatever is being shared is done or shared, then we will give the link and invite anybody who's in the chat into the panel. And feel free, don't be scared. We're not gonna bite your head off or anything like that. And again, this is a safe place to share information, learn, ask questions, and so on and so forth. All right. So, I'm just rambling to kind of buy some time. So I see people in the chat tuned in. Hotep, Sunette Jolanda, Son Omar, and who else? And Son Tephesip Ahau. That's a nice name right there, by the way. It's a nice name, Tephesip. Anybody with Tephesip in their name, they are with me. All right. Tephesip, for those who don't know, it means the we would translate it as correct method, but it's the tip sounds similar to English word tip, top, the tip, the top, the beginning, or the first part. Hesab means to count, to reckon, to count. So it's like the best way of reckoning, and applied in the context, it means the correct method on how to proceed or to do something. And so yeah, Teb Hesed. All right. So he has a long name. I didn't even read the whole name. I thought that was, he typed that. So Teb Hesed Ahau presents Innovation Over Ignorance, Inc. And that's what I'm talking about. All right. incorporated that thing. All right. So I'm gonna mute myself and I'm gonna pass the mic on over. So let me just explain. So Divine Words Wednesdays and Freestyle Fridays. Divine Words Wednesdays differs from Freestyle Friday in that tonight on Divine Words Wednesday, we slow the conversation down and we basically share information. Pick a topic beforehand and build up information about it and then share it. So that's Divine Words Wednesdays where we kind of go in on a specific topic. Freestyle Friday, we randomly choose images or are given images with text and inscriptions, and then we freestyle, transliterate, and translate it. And freestyle meaning we use no books. We just go from whatever we know as a group, as a panel, and we lean on each other for our strengths and weaknesses. You know, we have that exchange, and we try to get through transliterating, translating in a reasonable amount of time without the use of books. And that's fun, and I encourage everyone to do it. Anyone who's studying the ancient Egyptian culture, the only way you can properly study the culture is by way of its language. The language is the gateway to the culture. If you don't study the language in pursuit of studying the culture, then you're going to be handicapped. Just know that. It's like trying to run a race with a sprained ankle. You're not going to perform very well. And that just holds true for studying any culture that's not your own. You have to do it by way of the language. And the reason why is because language is sort of like the DNA of culture. Culture is actually permeates and transmitted through the language. The language contains and holds the psychology of the people. And the psychology of the people, how the people think, their worldview, how they approach issues, circumstances, situations, and solve problems, identify problems, et cetera, is all encapsulated in a population's language. All right. So to know the people or the culture, you have to know the language to have access to that. So that's the motivation behind that. So now with that, I'm going to mute my mic and pass the mic on over to Sanet Emiket or Sabat Emiket, and you can take it away.
Okay, Dua. And by the way, Sabat means either teacher, student, some lessons and things of that nature. But yeah, so this is it's an artifact that was dropped on the inbox, and we were going through it, and I decided to kind of like just walk through it and show it for this Wednesday to kind of showcase like the process that you go through when translating and transliterating. And so yeah, you could just take it to the next slide.
All right, let me just make sure that my screen is showing while you're talking.
Okay.
Okay, so just want to make sure that switches over and then we'll be good.
Okay.
All right, there we are. All right, so here you are.
All right. So the whole artifact is ointment jar. So you have the lid and then you have the jar itself. And on this slide, what you're looking at is the lid and the some inscriptions on it. And if you remember the whole process, there are 4 steps to translating, and the first step is to figure out the direction in which the inscription is to be read. And we usually say there's 2 directions and then there's 2 orientations. So the direction is either left to right or right to left, and then the orientation could be either column or row. So in this case, we have the inscriptions are written from left to right, and we know that because if we look at the pictures or the glyphs of the animate objects like the birds are usually good ones to tell us. So you have like the owl over there, and the owl is facing right. So we're going to read into it. So right to left. And the orientation is in rows. We see rows. So we're reading. So in rows. So then the second step is finding out, the different glyphs and documenting them. And usually this one, when you become a little bit proficient in reading the Sesh Netcher, it becomes a process of actually not documenting the glyphs that you recognize, but probably documenting the ones that you don't recognize at that point, because then you'll know most of them, and then there'll be few that you might not know, and that's what you're going to be using to be looking them up. Then you go to the third step, which is grouping them into words. And okay, not to rush, but yeah, so in the second step, we can see glyphs like the ankh. Everybody recognizes the ankh, and that's actually the one in the beginning. Yeah. And then we have, and that's a triliteral, which is ANX. And then you have the Netcher, and yeah, the standard, and that's also a triliteral, and yeah. And then there's others that we recognize, like the monoliteral, the raised breadloaf, and so forth. So once you document that, then on the third step, you'll be parsing or grouping the glyphs into words. And I'll just see if we have an example of some, like the ones I mentioned actually are words on their own. So you, which one will be a good? So let's go to the second row.
Okay, second row. All right.
Second row, the last three glyphs. So that is probably one that we pass together as one word, and everybody knows that that's Amen. And you have the reed leaf, and then you have the game board, and then you have the water ripple, and the reed leaf and the water ripple. And the water ripple in this sense is actually functioning as a phonetic complement. So it lets us know what the main board is, which is MN, and a biliteral. So that's the third step. And then so you group the words together, and then we'll be looking for the words in the dictionaries, and then come up with a sensible translation. So over here on this slide, everything is already done. So I'm just gonna go ahead and read what is actually written on top of the jar lid, and that is has Ankh, Netteret, Neferet, and actually, and you might wonder why Nefer actually has a T, but because that's it's an adjective, and it's an attributive adjective in this sense. And since we're talking about Hatshepsut, where we see the word Netteret has a feminine, the T ending to represent the feminine part, then the Netteret, the Neferet also has a T, but most of the time it is omitted, and you will see that in a lot of inscriptions, like the ones we've seen before with the Ma'akiru, where sometimes the T in the Ma'akiru is omitted, and it will be like Ma'atkiru when you're talking about a female person that is mentioned in the inscription. So here we have Ankh, Netteret, Neferet, and then we get into the Shenu, which has the name, and this will be Ma'at Kara, and we see that that's honorific transposition going on. We have Ra that is written first, that comes first, but obviously when we say the name, it will be Ma'at Kara and not Ra, mentioning Ra first. And then you have Irenes, Medew, and that would be that first line. And in that first line, should I go ahead and just read the whole thing before translating? Yeah, I think I should. Okay, so so you have Medew, and the word the Medew has a suffix pronoun added. So the word didn't end at that line, and we already should know that by this point, that just because we end, the last word comes in that row does not mean that that is the end of that word or the end of a sentence. So in this case, we have menu s, and then it will be it s coming after that, imen, kefet, ped, shes, her, imen, jesser, jesseru at the third row, and then you have ir s, ankti, and then you have mira, jet, and here we also have honorific transposition, where ra is written first before the milk jug in me. And so when you translate that whole inscription, what you get is long live the perfect goddess, or some people say the perfect Netcher or the perfect deity. And then you have Ma'at Kara, the name, who has made it as her monument to her father, Amen, at the time of the stretching of the rope upon the Holy of Holies of Amen, so that she may live like Ra forever. And so what you're seeing is pretty much the name and then some of her titles, and yeah, and what she's known for. And then I think we can go to the next slide at this point. I'm not sure if there's anything that I would like to point out. If I do, I'll come back to it. So now on the next slide, we have the inscription that is on the jar itself. And in this section, we're still reading from right to left, but now we're reading in columns as opposed to rows. So we'll start with the first column, and the first column is what is on the right side. So you have Sat, Hemet, Imen, Hatshepsut, and that is the name of Hatshepsut. And then you have Irenes, Medew, S, N, it S. And then you go to the next column, and then it continues with Imen, Hefet. And in this instance, actually, Hefet is graphically transposed. So it's the placenta comes before, there's a placenta, then the raised bread loaf, and then the horned viper, as opposed to the placenta, then the horned viper, and then the raised bread loaf. But so let me continue. So it will be Imen, Hefet, and then Ped, Shes, Her, Desher, Jesser, Jesseru, Ir Es, Ankti. And you can see some familiarity with what we already did on the first slide, or on the lid. So here what we have is daughter of Ra, and then Hatshepsut. And it will be Knum Amen, Hatshepsut, and then who has made it as a monument to her father. And then the next line, we have Amen, at the time of stretching of the rope upon the Holy of Holies of Amen, so that she may live. And that's pretty much it for the translation. But while doing this, most of the time, like, I looked through some of the some other artifacts, and you would see that Hatshepsut, she would have the same epithet going on. I think if you go to the next slide, I think that's where I put a different artifact that had the same. Oh no, we have the vocabulary. So yes, so this is just breaking down some of the vocabulary that we found in that inscription. And in the first one, you see like Ir and S, and that is she has made it. And that is like what we call the Setep NF verb form, and it will be like in past tense. And you could just look through this and see some of the words that are used over there. I don't know if there's anything I might want to point out other than that. Yeah, you have in the middle column, the last glyph. So that is that's a whole phrase. Actually, those two, that one and the one above it, actually phrases. But if we look at that last one, it will be ir es ancti, and ir es on its own would be that she do something in that sense, and then ancti will be you can translate it to live, and so if you had that whole phrase, it would be like, like how you say like she does and then live. But then if you translate literally, but so we just kind of put it as to make more sense, that she may live, because she's alive and you want her to continue living. Yeah. So if we go to the next slide. So here I've found a different artifact that has pretty much the same. So you will see this repetition, and that's why we always say that it's good to focus on a particular type of inscription. So then you get to be familiar with things, because here you will see the same thing going on. If you look at this, the stone, you will, okay, let's look at, yeah, that stone, and you will see it starts pretty much the same way. You have Netcher, and then you have Neferet, and then you have Ma'at Kara with her name, and then Ir NS, and then M Menues, and it continues. I can see all that clearly. And yeah, and then you have everything that we went through. You have Hefet, and then you have Pej, then you have Shes and Hair, and then Imen, and then Jesseru, and yeah, Ir es Ankti. So it's pretty much what we went through. So being familiar and doing that will speed the process and help you retain like vocabularies or different words that you meet in the sesh. And I think we also have her name there, Ma'at Kara, and then Hatshepsut. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. And I also wanted to show, obviously, because it's really interesting, because it's such Hatshepsut, and she's like one of the kings, like she's one of the female kings, and that's an interesting thing. So you would see like her statues as well, and if you go to the next statue, actually. Yeah, there are two statues here. And what I found very interesting is the fact that, because you go to these sites and you see people doing that, what we call lookership, like they compare like this statue head looks like this celebrity, these people might, obviously they're Black, why is everybody trying to deny it? But then we always say that the way that the Remetch or the ancient Egyptians portrayed their art is not to be taken literally. So obviously, when you look at Hatshepsut's statue, that does not look like what you would expect, like a female. But there is a canon that they use and conventions that they use, and they maintain those. And for us, we are looking at art or the sculptures in a different manner, where we look at the sculpture and we think that it portrays that person literally. While for those people that were living at that time, looking at the sculpture is almost like it's a packed information, where if they're looking at this at the statue, it's used the same way, or in this, using the same conventions for all the different kings, regardless of their height, their skin color, their gender. So we can't really be doing that, because that would not give us we would not draw out the accurate information. That's we read art the way we read our modern art, as opposed to those people reading the art in a different manner. So I thought that was interesting, and I just wanted to share that. I don't know if there's any more. Yeah, and what we read on the inscription, where you had just a rule, and that's a place, and you see the determinative also with the enclosure. So this is the place that is being discussed on that inscription, and it's really, really beautiful. I think it's also on the next slide. Yeah, so that, that is something to be proud of if you build. So built for her father. So yeah, I thought that was interesting too. I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if there's any questions, or if you would like me to, or anybody on the chat would like me to go through the glyphs a little bit more, or anything like that.
Okay. So let me post a link now and see if anybody in the chat doesn't mind joining us. So give me a second here to post the link. Okay, so I just posted the link, and anyone who's in the chat, you're more than welcome to join the panel and let your voice be heard, share information, ask questions, or, you can ask in the chat. So I haven't been following the chat, but I don't see any questions in the chat. Everyone's just basically greeting. Appreciate everybody tuned in. We have Donnie from West Africa. Not Donnie's from West Africa, but Donnie Williams. Then we have from West Africa. Peace. Lamar Pope, Robert Rand, and everything is everything. And that is true. Everything is everything. Something is something. Even something is everything. All right. We have Sun June. All right. June is in the chat. So June's taking a break from the panel, being in the chat. All right, now June.
Yeah,
June says,
actually, what?
June said, "Can you go in on the difference of her names, the two names?" So let's go back to the other.
Yeah, yes, that's good. And actually, June provided the inscription in the inbox. So yeah, that's a good exercise. And in the names that we see, so that one is what you would call the Nesut Bidi name, or the throne name, and that is Ma'at Kara. And I know you've said this a couple of times, that we say Hatshepsut, but that probably during those days would be kind of disrespectful because that's a family name. So this will be like the throne name. So probably this is what she will be known as, Nesut Bidi Ma'at Kara. So we say Ma'at Kara as opposed to Hatshepsut, and then and then at the bottom, so that is that would be like her family name, so the one that she had before she got put as king, and it would be and what is what we know as Sarah, but in this case Sat Ra, and is it will be Henemut, Amun, or Amen, Hatshepsut, and what it would literally translate to is Kenemet is like Kenemet comes from the root word Kenem, which would be like to join. So that would be join, and then with Amun or Amen, and then you have Hatshepsut. So Hat, where you see the front part of a lion, so that would be translated as foremost. Yeah, foremost, and then so you have the noble, the seated noble, and it will be translated as Shepes, which would be like a noble, but this would be Shepeset. So, and that would be like the feminine part of a noble, which would be of a Shepes, so it would be Shepesset. So we even actually butcher her name and don't even, her family name, and don't even say it fully out. So we just say Hatshepsut or Hatshepsut instead of even saying Henemet Amen Hatshepsut. But that would be her family name, and they would not call her with that name. I doubt it. So it will be the Sutpiri name. So yeah.
All right. So it's a Ike Dua. All right. Excellent. Anybody else on the panel? Want to offer any words? Any questions, comments? Now, again, I posted a link in the chat. So if you're more than welcome. We don't bite. This is a safe place. We're all learning. We're all on this journey, learning, sharing, asking, probing, seeking, questioning, testing, experimenting, all of the above. That's what we do. And it's a safe place to do that. All right. Remember that. We're going to drive that point home. This is a safe place to do that. All right. So I don't see any questions in the chat.
Joe, I had a question.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate to ask here or ask on Friday, but I want to. Can you go back to the jar lid or the jar itself?
Okay.
Sorry, right there.
Here.
Yeah. So I guess for a question of clarity in terms of verb tense, the verb iri, as why was it translated as or treated as a passive here?
Which one?
As opposed to being active. Iri ns.
Oh, here.
Right, because at first glance, right, quickly one would want to probably say, she has made or created or whatever, as opposed to she has created it.
Oh, right.
Or does context dictates what's the right tense to use here?
Okay, the context, because that's one thing. I'm glad you asked that, because when we're dealing with artifacts, there's only so much room on artifacts to write text. And so there's not a lot of context to work with. And a lot of grammatical issues depend on syntax. And the smaller the syntax or syntagmatic environment that you have, as it's called, is the more challenging that you will have, in terms of correctly translating. So the more context, the better ability you have to get it right. And so and that goes for any language, because if context matters, because we could speak English like right now, and I can say something, I could say a sentence, and I can give you a whole, less content, very little content, and there's so many options you can go with it. And so this is no different. And so I say that to say that one, the reason why this is an issue for us dealing with Sesh, Medew, Netcher, which is a writing system, is because the writing system itself did not document the vowels. And so we're handicapped in knowing the slight differences between the verbal forms that would otherwise look alike. So these are to us, they would be what they call homographic issues that we have to deal with. Whereas if they recorded the vowels, it would be pretty much a lot clearer to us. So because the vowels are missing, there are verbal forms and forms of words that look alike, that can be any number. It could be a few options of what it could be translated as. Okay, so and that will slightly change the either the mood, the tense aspect, different aspects of verb forms. And so the one you're asking about, in S
Goodness.
could be what you said, or it could be how it's translated here, who has made it. And so
Yeah.
context would matter, because either way it would be okay, because the message will still be the same.
Yeah, I was also gonna add that it was also while translating, I actually kind of go back and forth. I did start with the er and s with that suffix pronoun for the s. Actually, me translate starting out with she, but then when you go to the next line and you have menu s, so you'd be like if er and s would be a past tense and then the s would be for her as opposed to it, then it would kind of clash when you go with she made or that she had made as her monument. And then once you get to translating and trying to come up with something that makes total sense, it would click that it's the monument that is being pointed as the s in it for it as opposed to she. So I went back and forth with that. So like Sebojao said, the context would dictate. So, but yeah, I understand how that happened, because I went through that as well while doing this.
Right. So now the issue is a grammar issue that you're asking about, Chris, and you mentioned passive. So if you don't mind, if you could quickly define what a passive verb is.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so passive verbs are those verb forms where the action is did to the subject,
Mm-hmm.
right? As opposed to the subject actually doing the action.
Okay. So instead of she made, now, okay, so that's the definition of passive, but here's another point that we have to be mindful of, is that suffix pronouns, this s here on the end, or this doorbolt, that's usually transliterated as a z, and or an s. So some scholars, you may see this translated strictly as a z, and then a folded cloth, which is here, transliterated as an s, and they usually make that distinction between the two, z and s. In any case, this is a suffix pronoun, which is transliterated here as an s. Now, s and f are both suffix pronouns, and you can see an f. No, actually don't see an f here. No, actually don't. So I mean, we see a horn vibrate, but not the suffix pronoun f. So, but the suffix pronouns of s or f are third person pronouns. And remember, third person is the object or person that you're talking about. Remember, first person is the speaker or the writer, and the second person is to whom the speaker is speaking to, or to whom the writer is writing to. And then third person is not in the conversation at all. That's why, even as children, we used to say, this is an A-B conversation, see your way out, so C would be the third person. And so that could be masculine, it would be he, feminine, it'd be her. And then in English, neuter will be it. So he, her, or it. They're all third person. And so this S normally being feminine, but it could also be it. So it'd be her or she or it. And so that's where because of that, that's where the option comes in. And if you say she, then it wouldn't be passive. If you put it here, then made it, because the subject is already understood to be ma'at kara, because it's mentioned first here. So again, with the limited content and context, it can go either way, but the message will still be the same. The roundabout message will still be the same. And this, and this is a testament to how flexible people have to be in their translations. You have to be flexible. And what I find is that when people begin the journey of learning the language, they begin with the cup full of assumptions. And or people who are not studying the language, they will have certain assumptions already, planted in their minds, and they look at things translated word for word, like specific, exact, literal, word for word. And that's not how translations are done. And we have to understand that the endeavor of translating is to move meaning from a source language over to a target language. That's what's moving, the meaning. And because the source language and the target language may not be an exact match in terms of lexical entries, inventory, which means the vocabulary and or the grammar, you have to be flexible and be able to make adjustments. Okay. Rodney Kimmett grammar is not the same as English grammar. So when you bring meaning from Rodney Kimmett, which is ancient Egyptian language, over into English, because the grammars don't match exactly, you have to be able to make adjustments. And so that's why they say translation is also an art. And different scholars may not translate this the exact same way. And that's the reason why. But if you step back, this is where you get into the wider semantic scope, or what they refer to as pragmatic meaning of the entire text. You all the scholars will pretty much be saying the same thing, even though they may not translate it the exact same way. And so we have to be able to engage on any of those levels. And that's where the flexibility comes from in doing this kind of work. All right. And so I like to always tell people that so they could remove that assumption, because people think translations, is a equal sign. And that's not the case. All right. And I can give countless examples, many examples. And I'll just say one right now. What's a good one? Like what we refer to as idioms. So I'm just gonna ask anybody on the panel, the phrase sit ib, what does that literally translate to? Sit ib. Sit ib. We encountered that recently. Set ib.
Is it place of the mind? A place in the, some people I guess will say heart, but place of the mind.
Right. Okay. So so literally what's what?
Set is place and ib is mind or heart.
Okay.
Mind.
Exactly. So now that's how we would translate that or transliterate that or translate that literally. Set being place and ib being mind. A lot of people want to translate it as heart, but it's the mind. Place of mind, or not even of, because the of is not even there. So we say place mind. Now we know that doesn't make sense in English at all. So we have to interject words to make it make sense, and we can turn it into an idiom. And the place of mind in the culture of the Rimage, it simply means affection. And that makes perfect sense, because if someone has their place or seat, because the word set is place, but it also means seat, because wherever you sit at, that's the place, that's where you are. So your seat or your place, if your place is in someone's mind, then that person is constantly thinking about you. That's what that simply means. And so we use it as an idiom for today. We would say affection. Affection.
Is that why people say like like when people say like people hating on you, like they are closet fans? Because obviously if you're in somebody's mind a lot, so you have an affection for that person, but it just comes out different.
Yeah. And so there's different kinds of affection. You got the negative side and the positive side. So sit if. So you know the word for stalker, a person who's constantly thinking about somebody or preoccupied. We say preoccupied, like you're so preoccupied with so and so, so and so. That person is sit if. That person definitely has a spot in your mind, a comfortable chair, a nice love seat, a nice recliner. But yeah, so that's that. I was trying to switch this back over so everyone could be seen or heard. So again, you know, anybody in chat, I haven't been monitoring the chat, but if you're more than welcome, I'm gonna post the link one more time. More than welcome to join the panel, share, ask questions, or what have you. Okay, so let's go to the chat here. Niwasara, I'm out to eat, still sneak watching. Okay, yeah. We have Brother Kadeem's at work, so that's cool. I know you can't everybody can't speak. Let's see. Jeremy Kador, was there slavery in Egypt similar to slavery in the United States? Everything is everything. I'm wholly unqualified to ask a question. I'm a mere student observer. Well, don't ever say that about yourself, you know, because a critical thinker, because here's the thing, even if you don't know about the subject that that someone is talking about with you, you know, your reasoning faculty and logic, if you have a command of logic, you can formulate questions if something seems to be, you know, unclear logically or whatever the case is. So, you know, always remember that. And Jeremy, I'm not ignoring your question. I'm just trying to see where the conversation is going a bit. Jehudi Ma'at, she was made as her monument has a ring to it. Okay, she was made as her monument. Emicat did a very good job. Forgive me, I misspelled her name. Jolanda said, Jeremy, no. But that's a question for Garfield and bro Reggie. I'm just trying to see if Shaka is right or Jabari. Let's see. What are you saying? We don't know what went on in Kemet. Okay. Nice to finally see you here, Jolanda. All right. Living rent free in one's. Oh, set Ib. Yep. All right. Dua. Okay, so I'm just reading the comments. All right, so this slavery thing. Let me ask you, Jeremy. See, that's why I wish you were available to come into the panel so you can speak, because there's gonna be a delay and I need to ask you some questions because I like to engage. I like to have, you know, engaging conversations, discussions. But I'm just gonna ask you that, just a question. Would you be hard pressed? Which would be harder to find? Not saying that it's impossible, but which would be harder to find? Would it be harder to find cultures that had slavery, or would it be harder to find cultures that didn't have any slavery? And so I'm just curious, and I just want to ask you that question. Just want to see. I'm trying to synchronize a couple of things first. You know, synchronize a couple of things first.
And when you say slavery, what do you mean?
Yeah, but see, that gets into breaking down the details of different kinds of slavery.
Not like just a general term for slavery.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying the only time people get really detailed with slavery is when it comes to discussions like this. Otherwise, when people talk about slavery is slavery. You know, nobody slows that down to go over the different types of slavery. You know, whether it's servitude, whether it's chattel slavery, or whether it's, you know, all the different varieties of slavery. On this type of topic, in that environment, that's where that would be slowed down, because now people want to be more specific as to the type of slavery, but slavery in general is what I'm asking about. You know, because in our context here in the United States, pretty much our understanding of slavery comes through the lens of the transatlantic slave trade. Like slavery, that's slavery. When people get into servitude and serve and Slav, you know, the original Slavs or the original slaves, when people start to talk about all that, when you're talking to an African American living today who's here as a result of the transatlantic slave trade, they're not trying to hear all that. Slavery is slavery. You know, transatlantic slave trade, that's slavery. If people, you know, were enslaved, what about the prisoners of war and stuff like that? We're not trying to hear that when it comes to the transatlantic slave trade. Slavery is slavery. So I'm just saying that when it comes to a topic about Egypt or a specific culture, the question about slavery, now people want to get into the details, the minutiae of it. Well, is it chattel slavery? Is it temporary bondage? Is it servitude? Is it a servant? You know, do they have religious exemption or is it for life? Are people bought and sold? Are you born into it? People want to ask all those questions when it comes to stuff like that. Okay, I was trying to wait for his answer. He says definitely easier to find capture with culture. I mean, he meant culture. It's definitely easier to find cultures with slavery. Okay, so I mean, the reason why I asked that question is because slavery in the variety of forms that we may define it as is found around the world in different cultures. So the motivation for even having a topic of whether Egypt had slavery or not should be put in check by the fact that slavery existed in many cultures. And so there's a pushback at the genesis of that conversation where people have had a tendency to romanticize Egypt, and Egypt can do no wrong. Egypt didn't even, you know, I've heard people say Egypt didn't even have any prisons. They had no jails. And if you listen to a lot of things that people have said, you would think Egypt is this perfect utopia place that has nothing that we would frown upon today and things like that. And so that's referred to as romanticizing. And so conversations like that or questions, arguments and debates about that are born out of that climate of romanticizing. And that's the pushback on romanticizing Egypt or any place, but Egypt specifically for this topic. So the question is, did Egypt have slavery? And then once you get past that question, then it becomes, well, I want to know if it was like slavery in the United States, you know. So that's how the conversation unfolds. But it should really not be a surprise. So anyway, to answer your question, Egypt had slavery. So I don't think anybody can get around that. But if you want specific, was it like the United States? It wasn't like the transatlantic slave trade. No. All right, but that's a whole conversation because, you know, quantity, the amount of people that were kidnapped, what was the motivation? Was it wealth producing? And all kinds of different points that had to be brought out. So that's a whole conversation to have. But in general, Egypt has slavery. Anybody that say different, they really just are oblivious to Egypt, Kemet, ancient Egypt. All right, so Bottom line is Egypt had slavery.
What's interesting is that it took you literally 2 seconds to kind of kill all that discussion, really, because I was like, okay, did Egypt have slavery? Yes. Was it the same as the transatlantic and Atlantic slave trade? And you're like, no. So what's the fuss about again?
Right. I mean, it's nothing to fuss about. Nothing to fuss about. Now, let's say this. Because a lot of times you hear prisoners of war, and people will try to spin prisoners of war as if it's not slavery. And so the whole thing about how people define slavery is the touchy part. But the thing is what benefit is it going to get into the details of the variety of slavery when Egypt has slavery? Now, if, like, what difference does it matter the type of slavery? What is the outcome of knowing the different types of slavery if it's different than type 1, type 2, type 3? They had slavery. They had slaves. Period. So Egypt branded people. There was branding done in ancient Kemet. Branding was done. Can't get around that. And everything I'm saying, I could back up and show, but obviously, this Divine Words Wednesday, we presented what's on the screen. So nothing about slavery is on the screen. So shame on you, Jeremy, for totally changing the topic. But no, I don't mind the questions, and that's the beauty of like I said, this is a safe zone, safe learning environment, and we keep it professional and all that good stuff. So, but there are primary sources where we can show that branding took place in Kemet, where people were branded. All right. And then we know that people served other people. Now, most of that comes from prisoners of war. And that was known. And you have to understand, and this is something that I want everybody to understand and to walk away with. Notice that everybody talks about ancient Egypt or Kemet as this homogeneous one thing, like a blip. But we have to always keep in our minds that ancient Egypt or Kemet is a kingdom that lasted over 3,000 years. So the economy changed, it grew, everything wasn't static in Kemet from the beginning all the way to the end. So Egypt or ancient Egypt or Kemet went through many, many changes for many reasons, like any culture does. Cultures are a living are alive. They're living. Cultures are a real-time phenomena. And you take any snapshot at any given time of a culture, that becomes a tradition. That's the difference between tradition and culture. A tradition would be a picture. Culture would be a video that's always live. So like right now we're live on YouTube. That's culture. But if you pause the video and take a screenshot of any given point in the video, that is a tradition. Okay, so cultures are always living, breathing, they're alive. So cultures change with the times. It adapts, it adopts, all that kind of stuff. And there's a symbiotic relationship between the people and the culture, serving one another, two-way street. Anyway, I say that to say that we have to keep all that in mind, because in the old kingdom, you're not going to find a lot of war type of situations where people were captured and so on and so forth. But then at a certain point in Kemet's history, you're going to find that picked up. it starts to grow. You start to see a lot of fighting. You start to see prisoners of war and things like that. What to do with them? Well, hey, they're going to serve this and the third. All right. So prisoners of war is a hot topic when you're talking about slavery, because that is clearly seen where people served as prisoners of war. All right. So just wanted to share that. All right. Another quick thing about that. The word for prisoner of war. So who in the chat? Let me ask the chat first. Who in the chat knows the word that people like to use for prisoner of war? The Rodney Kimmett word, the ancient Egyptian word or phrase that's used for prisoner of war. Anybody? Well, hold up. I want to see if anybody in chat. Okay. So that Mika says everyone agrees there was slavery. No argument. I think they were sharing. Yeah, see, I'm not sure who's being talked about, because there, obviously there's a big contentious discussion between the brother Jabari and the brother Shaka Ahmos. So when you say that they're sharing information, you must be talking about somebody else. Between the brother Jabari and the brother Shaka Ahmos, I think, because that's an old conversation. And that's another thing, a lot of these things are old. These are old conversations that unfold over time, and now, make a debate about it and whatnot. But that's been brewing up for a while. I don't think it was sharing information. I mean, I think anybody that watched the videos or watch clips or whatever, that's not an instance of sharing information. If people will come on this panel right now and share information, that's sharing information. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to share information, have a discussion, but I think that has gotten to a point where it's arguing two different points and there's a debate coming out of it, as far as I know. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I thought that there was a debate, supposed to be a debate between the brother Jabari and the brother Shaka Amos on the position of slavery.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. For it to be a debate, there must be like different opposing views, so that it'll be interesting to see what the views are.
Yeah. So I didn't see any answer. So I'm gonna repeat my question. My question is, what is the term or phrase used a lot when people are speaking about prisoners of war in ancient Egypt? Kemet. What is the term? So Mika, I don't know if you know. I'm gonna ask you. What is the term that's used for prisoner of war? Any? All right. Anybody? Is anybody on the panel?
Seker Ankh.
Okay. Saker Unk. All right. That is a very popular phrase or term that's invoked in these conversations. Whenever you read an article or a scholarly article or book, or even hear conversations, intellectual conversations, you're going to hear that phrase. You're going to hear hem, the word hem or hemet. You're going to hear bak. You're going to hear najes. You're going to hear What's another one? Just top of my head. And then you're gonna hear Saker Unk. At least those. And there's a few others, but you're gonna at least hear those. Hem, Bach, Najes, Saker Unk. And they all are going to be related to a conversation dealing with slavery, servitude, and stuff like that. But Saker Unk is of interest because that's what people invoke in these conversations a lot, because it deals with prisoners of war. And if you look at the word, I don't have the word to show on the screen. If you look at the word, it is determined by a person with their hands bound behind them, being a prisoner. So, and let me just update my screen, make sure I'm in real time with everybody in the chat. So, all right, so what does that mean? So Saker, so Unk, everybody understands, or in everybody's head, you would say the word Unk, everybody would think life. Saker. Does anybody know what's not anybody on the panel, but anybody in chat? We're gonna walk through this real quick. What does Saker mean? All right, Mika, I'm gonna pick on you because I'm sure that between all the conversations, I know you have been watching or whatever. The word war, aha, fight or war, ahau, war. There's other words, but that's what comes to my head right now. Brother asks about the word for war. But yeah, so anyone who's been following the conversation, because I have to admit that I haven't been following the conversation, so I'm asking what has been said about that phrase Saker Unk. Brother Medjay, another word for war, aha means to fight. It's a word for fighting, and ahau is one word for war. You also have the word ker or kher, and that word literally means felon or to fall. But keru is also a word for fighting or war, battling. All right. So, and there's some other ones, but aha is pretty popular because aha is the fight, is to have a combat, to fight, and to have war and things like that. So but there are others. We could find find a whole lot of them for you. But nobody, man, nobody wants to come on the panel, huh? Post it one more time. All right, well, listen, I'm gonna shift back to the presentation that we just watched. So Hatshepsut's lid and jar. So here's the thing. A lot of people like to call Hatshepsut Queen Hatshepsut, but we really should do proper honors and call her King Hatshepsut, because today I know that sounds a little counterintuitive for us to say that, because she's a woman. And when we think today, we think of a king, we think of a man. I mean, hands down, that's kings are man's, kings are men and queens are women. So when we have a woman king, is a little bit odd to us, but we got to get through that and just understand that she was King Hatshepsut. Okay, king, dual king at that. Nisud Biti Ma'at Kara Sa'at Ra Kenemet Amen or Imen Amun Hat Shepes Et. That's her name. And as Emiket said, the family name, the two names are in the Shinu, protected with the enclosed Shinu, which is an enclosure to encircle. So the two names were encircled to protect and to last long in the memory of the people. It's just that the family name connects genealogically. The throne name is a different thing. The throne name was acquired when they appeared on the throne. Kau, appear. And you may see some of the kings be called Neb Kau, Lord of Appearance. And that's a ritual that installing or enthroning a person on the throne. They receive a name and so on and so forth. So her throne name was Ma'at Ka-Ra. And in the official capacity, that's what she would have been called in ancient times. Similar to how we don't just walk around and say, what's up, Barack? Or what's up, Joe? Or what's up, Don? For these latest three presidents, we would say Mr. President, or we would say President Obama, President Trump, President Biden, or Mr. Obama, Mr. Trump, Mr. Biden, et cetera, et cetera. You know, there's a certain protocol that we would just abide by. And so likewise, Ma'at Ka-Ra would be the more official name that she would be referred to as. But because of Egyptologists and early Egyptologists, they focused on the family name. And that's the only reason why we know the kings by their family name. So like Tutankhamun, that's that particular king's family name. Seti the First, family name. Ramses, family name. Hatshepsut, family name. Thutmose, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Ahmose, 1, 2, and 3, etc. You know, these are all the family names. And so if we were to just switch up right now and start mentioning the throne names, no one would know who we're talking about. And we have to thank for that, you know, the discipline of Egyptology. You know, it's not the end of the world, you know, for that, but we should start to know the throne names of all of these kings. So Tutankhamun, throne name is Neb-Keperu-Ra of Ramses the second. Throne name is Waser Ma'at-Ra Setepen-Ra. King Hatshepsut's throne name, Ma'at Ka-Ra. And so, you know, little by little, we should start saying them more, then we'll get used to them. All right. So that's one thing. And then, you know, if you study King Hatshepsut's reign and her accomplishments and what she did while she was on the throne, you will walk away, hopefully you will walk away thinking, wow, she is one of the biggest slept on kings of ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt, Kemet, because she did so much. She actually brought Kemet back to its glory and prosperity. If you read all the things she's done, and you can see that by the glorious expedition that was accomplished under her reign to the land of Punt. You see huge ships. You'll see a lot of monuments that were created, chapels, monuments. Emiket showed one earlier. I got to put that back on the screen. Let me put that back on the screen. This. Now, everybody has seen this before. That's a nice shot. All the lights and everything. Now, if there was a like an overhead shot, you would see that this thing is built into the monument. I mean, into the mountain. Like you see all the rough part of the mountain, then all of a sudden this nice structure just emerges and it goes in. So anyway, you know, she is definitely she would be a requirement on my list. I would require people to read about Hatshepsut. and things during her reign. It's a lot, a whole lot. But everybody talks about Tutankhamun because of the discovery of his tomb and how so many of his artifacts were intact. That's really how he got famous. He sticks out because of the tomb, the findings in the tomb, and how plentiful they were. They weren't looted like the other tombs, and they were preserved and so on and so forth. A lot of those objects. So he got famous for that, Tutankhamun, and then the golden mask of Tutankhamun, the coffin, and so on. The several different coffins, the inner coffin, the middle coffin, the outer coffin, and so on and so forth. So all that stuff is available. It's in museums, and it actually tours around the world as a solo exhibition. Then the next king that's talked about a lot is what? Who would you say is the most popular king that's talked about, at least? I'm asking anybody on the panel.
Ramesses II.
Yep. Well, yeah, he's definitely one of them. Definitely, for sure. Ramses II. Yep, the great Ramses. Ramses II. Well, another one. Well, obviously the Great Pyramids are attributed to Khufu, and so on. So you hear Khufu mentioned a lot in the context of conversation dealing with the pyramids. But Ramses is probably talked about the most. I don't know. That's probably debatable. But if we had to give a top 5, Ramses is definitely in there. Tutankhamun is definitely in there. Amenhotep. Well, Akhenaten. Obviously, Amenhotep the Fourth. He changed his name to Akhenaten. And so he's talked about a lot, but in a kind of notorious way. So anyway, but any other thing, any other questions? I'm looking at the chat. Majay said that sounds straight like some strange creatures you would find on Hollywood Boulevard past midnight. Okay, maybe something that was said. So nobody want to come on the panel and share. Okay.
Senate Lisa is here.
Okay, Hotep. Did Mika answer? I was wondering because I was curious to know Seker Ankh. What was said about that phrase? Because I'm not clear on what was said because I haven't seen the videos. I haven't seen the videos like that. All right. Well, hey, since there's no more, but hey, that's excellent presentation. I'm just gonna quickly flip through them again. So this is Hatshepsut's ointment jar. So that's the lid. Excellent. Now, what I do recommend people who are actually studying the language and the culture is to, wherever you are in your journey, at some point, definitely transcribe whatever inscriptions that you're working with, whatever software or things that you feel comfortable with. If you need help, you can always come to us and we'll walk you through doing this process. We have a couple of videos already done in the archives on this channel. And by the way, make sure you kind of look through the archives at the different titles and things. We've covered a lot. You'd be surprised that a lot of what people argue about today, we've already covered years ago, like a few years ago, and more than once between Facebook and YouTube. But transcribing, so you see how she transcribed the lid over into making it clear and legible for us to read here. And so I encourage everyone to do that. That helps out tremendously. All right. So that's excellent. Transliteration. This transliteration method that you're seeing on the screen, we refer to it as diacritic. There's two major transliteration systems that's used. One is referred to as manual decodage. The other one is referred to as diacritic. Manual decodage is case sensitive. That's where you see upper and lower case letters. If you ever see that in somebody's transliteration, nine out of 10 times, that's what they're using that system. And that system was developed for social media emails and things like that, where you don't have to have a special keyboard or anything. You don't have to worry about any special characters. It's just upper and lower case. All right. But the one you see on the screen is a diacritic transliteration method, and you will see special characters called diacritics. That's why we refer to it as diacritic. So you see this curve under the H, you see the straight line under the T, what you see reverse comma or reverse apostrophe, however you want to describe that. So things like that. Okay. The character above the S. Now, each one of these characters actually have a name. I just don't know them from memory, but these are diacritic marks, and they're knowable. You can look up the names of each of these little diacritic markings, all right, as well. But anyway, so that's the system that's used, that MEK used here, diacritic. All right. So earlier when she said A N X, that was the manual decodage, but what you see is a reverse comma or apostrophe, reverse apostrophe, N, and then an H with the curved underline, a curve for the word Ankh. So you have Ankh Netcher Neferet, Ma'at Kara, Erin S, and Menu S. All right, and so on. So that's it. I just wanted to make sure everyone is up on that. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I think you have a few questions on the chat, and I was trying to go back and listen to where if the word secure ankh was mentioned, and I think it's used to mention it was used as a prisoner for life.
Yeah, they say bound. I've heard them use the word bound too. Well, I've heard them use the word bound. Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't mean that.
Nin.
No.
It's a long silence, boy.
I was saying the same thing.
What is it then?
Long silence. I'm like, man, did you all fall off the earth? What's going on? Okay, I heard you say nin. So no, it doesn't mean that. All right. So let's just quickly deal with that phrase. Okay. The word seker ankh, the word seker alone, it's a word, it's actually a verb that means to smite. All right, to hit, to smite. And seker, when referring to a person used as a noun, it is one who is smitten. All right, it's one who is smitten. Now, usually the term smitten, to smite someone, is to kill someone. Okay, so seker, one who is smitten, ankh, alive. So it's a person who is struck down but alive. Seker ankh. And so they translate it commonly as prisoner of war, because the people who are smitten are people who were fighting. And they were subdued or smitten, seker, and they were captured alive. So basically it's saying a living smitten one and not a dead smitten one. Because smitten, to smite someone is like to render them, as they would say, mut, dead. But these people are not dead. These people are alive. But yet they're alive, but they have been smitten. All right. So, just.
Native, right? Something like that.
I'll say it again.
I said something like a participle stative.
Right. Participle. See, an adjectival way of describing a person using a verb is referred to pretty much as a participle. And so sakir, to smite, as a participle is who is smitten. All right, so hopefully everyone understands that. All right, so that's that. Now, to be bound for life, to translate that, you would have to translate sakir as to be bound, because people will look at unk to mean life. So that means that someone is translating sakir as to be bound.
Yeah, is a bound or captive or slave? I think it got mixed into that, so could be.
Sakir is not bound, captive, or what was the other one? Or slave.
Yeah.
Sakir is to hit, to smite, and sakir as a participle is who is smitten. That's how we would say who is smitten.
Yeah, well, it seems like I think what happened is someone looked at that determinative and they saw the man instead of looking at the man as a prisoner, they was looking at his arms being bound. So they say bound for life. That's it.
No, well, that's not the case. And here's the thing. So I'm just gonna say it. And so this is Divine Words Wednesday, April 28th, 2021. Bypassing all the noise and what I feel is an unnecessary hype around having a discussion like that, is that the prisoner of war Sakir Ankh is a person who is smitten alive. And that's how they saw these people. These people were once fighting enemy. Khefti. That means opposition, your opponent. These were opponents who fought to death in normal circumstances, but not killing them, but at the same time smiting them. They are alive. And so these people were captured. So the activity surrounding Sakir Ankh will give you the bigger picture of people who were captured, but that's not what the word literally means. It's one who is smitten but alive, not a dead person. And so they have to be bound because they were once enemies and they become prisoners of war. So they translate that as prisoner of war or prisoners of war, et cetera, et cetera. Now, here's the thing. Here's an interesting thing about this, though. If people are going to run with bound or somebody being bound up, I see if I had the word in front of me to show at the same time that I'm talking about this, I'm going to see if I could do this real quick here.
I could share on my screen if you want it. I'll put it together real quick.
Okay, yeah, do that. And then if you could send that to me. So, but I'm just gonna explain it. I don't have it on screen yet.
I can't share, so I'll just send it to you then.
Right. Okay. So, but here's the thing: if and trying to have some kind of meaning of bound, here's the interesting thing that let me ask the panel: what is the shinu and the ankh made of?
Rope.
Rope.
Right. It's made of rope. What is the word for sandal in Rani Kemet?
Ankh.
Unk.
Unk. Okay. What is a word for document? Now there's a couple of words for document, but I'm trying to get you all to follow me with this one. Sandal is unk. The unk itself is made of rope. It's in rope, and you can see it carved where you can see it tied at the bottom, and so on and so forth. You see these ropes. All right, and with the shinu. So what is another word for document in Rani Kemet?
I only know Rajat, but I'm gonna guess Ankh.
Unk.
Right. Okay, so now there's a word unk that means document. There's a word unk that means sandals. And the unk itself is made of rope, et cetera, right? So,
Two.
okay. Now, sandals are fastened to your ankles and your feet by way of what? Now, today we call rope string. Tie your shoestrings. We don't say tie your shoe ropes. We don't say that, right? Tie your shoe ropes.
String or lace or whatever.
Yeah, lace up your ropes. Nobody would say that. They say lace up your strings, your shoestring. Or shoe laces. We'll say laces themselves. Lace up is the act of tying, but the laces themselves are the string or ropes, right? So sandals and things are connected to your feet by way of some kind of, it's secured to your feet by some type of string or rope, right or wrong? Is that right or wrong?
You.
Right.
Okay. Did the ancient Egyptians have books?
They had
Like
scrolls.
how they had
No.
scrolls, right?
Right.
And these scrolls were like the equivalent of a sheet of paper, or were they long?
They were long.
Right. So did they carry them around all stretched out and long, or did they roll them up?
They rolled them up.
Okay, to keep them rolled up, what they use?
A rope.
They use
String.
they use string or rope to keep them quote unquote bound, right?
Correct.
That sandal being connected to your foot by way of a rope. They use a rope to what? To keep that sandal bound to your feet and your ankle. The scroll is rolled up to and tied with the rope to keep it bound, right? So we got document. Now, what's the word for oath? Like taking an oath, swearing an oath. What's that word in Rani Kemet?
Ankh.
That word is ankh as well. So what is an oath? An oath is a contract which is binding. When you take an oath, you are binding yourself to something. You are swearing by it. To swear an oath is to bind yourself to something. Is that right or wrong?
That is correct.
Okay, so we have unk sandal, unk document, unk oath, and the unk itself is made of rope and so on and so forth. Now, in this word or phrase, saker unk, you see a determinative of a man with his arms behind his back, bound by what?
Rope.
Rope. All right. So enough said on that. All right. Does anybody else have anything else to talk about?
That was cold.
For sure.
Anything else? Oh, Mika's back. Mika, you should pop. Oh, Mika's probably at work. No, so Chris, okay, back to what I say. I don't want to end it like that, but I'm saying if people are going to invoke this semantic context of bound, then they have to do it properly. They have to talk about, see, what I guess discourage people from doing or encourage people to grow, expand and grow out of is to live in dictionaries. Because I've noticed that with a lot of things, people will look into a dictionary and then walk away as if the dictionary is the end game. And that's not it. A dictionary is a tool in lieu of dealing with the primary sources and getting and reading and understanding and comprehending those. You can't stop at dictionaries. You should never do that. And then on top of that, what people tend to do is not only get stuck in dictionaries, but not even dictionaries, plural, a dictionary. And they don't see the different, ways that dictionaries will record these meanings. And I could sit here and say, I think I have every Egyptian dictionary ever made. From Champollion's vocabulary list, lexical inventory from him, all the way up to Vigus, 2018, Faulkner, the Waterbach, the French, forget the name. I have them. And each dictionary has their pros and cons. Pretty much the most popular one will probably be Budge's dictionary because it's free, it's everywhere online, and like I said, everyone can get their hands on it. So Budge is popular, but Faulkner's handwritten, Waterbach's handwritten. And a lot of people are not trying to do that because you have to know French, you have to know German, and so on. And that's a little too much for a lot of people, understandably so. So, but anyway, yeah, but I was just saying that if bound is going to be invoked, but the word seker is a verb and is used as a participle, functioning as a noun for someone, referring to an entity, and this entity is one who is smitten. And Ankh there is in contrast to being smitten and dead, but is smitten and alive. All right, so there you have it. Say Donnie says Ankh string. Man, it must be a delay.
I think, I was looking at that, and on my end, I don't see a big delay, but it might be for him, might be a very long delay. I don't know if it's there for anyone else.
He said string, right? Roll up string. We said that like 15 minutes ago. Okay, that's a good point. Word is bond. Think about that. My word is bond. Now I know some people say word is born, but it's really my word is my bond. And so some people bound. And now here's another thing. Oaths are taken, contracts are sealed or finalized by the act of tying something, tying a knot. Even marriage, the institution of marriage here in the United States of America, we will refer to marriage as tying the knot. Like, oh man, you ready to tie the knot? You ready to tie the knot? That means make a commitment. And now here's the semantic what do you call it? Continuum with this. And everybody experienced this. When you're tying your shoes, do you tie your shoes in a knot? Your sneakers, your tennis shoes. Do you tie your shoestrings in a knot, or do you tie it in a bow? Like, the bow. That's a question. Anybody? Do you tie your shoestrings in a knot, or do you tie it in a bow?
Bow.
Right. The reason why we don't tie our shoes in a knot is because we're not ready to commit. We're not ready to commit our feet to constantly wear those shoes. We want to be able to take those shoes off. So we tie it in a certain way where we can untie it.
Well, I
Yeah.
was gonna ask, isn't a bow a specific type of knot?
Yeah. I mean, if we want to drill down into the types of knots, you're absolutely correct. A like a bow tie, like when we put a tie on, a suit and tie, we're tying a knot, and so the knots have names. So you have the Windsor knot and so on and so forth. But they're a type of knot that's able to be undone. So you have knots, you have slip knots, and all this other kind of different knots. So if we wanted to drill down, yes, you're absolutely correct. But the point here is that, okay, let me ask it another way. A knot that we tie in a suit and tie, or the knot that we tie our shoes with, is that the same kind of knot that we use when talking about marriage?
No.
No.
All right, I'm about to say, don't get in trouble. So when we say tie the knot marriage, we're talking about a permanent knot. When we say tie a knot for our shoes or whatever, that kind of knot, that's not permanent. But the point I'm making, though, is that the act of tying a knot is directly related to commitment, a contract, et cetera, et cetera.
I was going to say that when you talk about the permanency of it, as an example, one of my friends who's from Central Africa, one of the things that she told me is part of their culture will be when you tie a knot when you get married. Traditionally, they would have a tying of the knot where the couple will have to tie the knot together, and then after the knot is tied, then they would bun it, and then so the rope dissipates. And the point is that so if at any given time the couple wants to get a divorce or separate from each other, then they will be told by their elders to go find the knot that they tied together and untie it, which is like an impossible thing. Exactly,
and that's a beautiful way of expressing that. And see, that's excellent. Because if a couple ties a knot together and then they burn it, it cannot be undone. And so that adds to the permanency. And so we get this idea today, my word is my bond. Say what you mean and mean what you say. And from there, we get the concepts of credibility and integrity. Because if your word is not your bond, if you give your word like you tie your shoes, which can always be undone, then you're not going to be a reliable person. You're going to be unreliable. And so the idea is to be an upright, good character having, reliable person. And in fact, in the language, in the glyphs, there is a knot glyph that is a knot. It's for the word chess. And the word chess has to do with words dealing with wisdom. Because remember, before the invention of writing, all of the knowledge, generational knowledge, had to be stored by way of oral speaking and or knot tying. So you have cultures that record data by way of knots, and they encode information in knots, and then you have to decode it in order to retell the story. So you have a story. So let's take any story, Three Little Pigs. Take that entire story and then convert it into knots. And then people who know how the conversion was done can therefore undo it and then retell the story. And so there are cultures on the continent of Africa that used to do that, may still do that to this very day, where they would store information in knots. And depending on the size of the knot, how far the knots are apart, and so on. It's similar to our system of Braille, where people who are blind, they can rub their hands across certain raised dots on paper or some surface, and they can read it. So that's similarly to how knots were used in by certain cultures to store information. And there are people who could read knots. And that's the word chess in Ronnie Kimmon.
We had it on the slide. There was an artifact made of the knot chess.
Oh, the actual artifact itself.
Correct.
Okay. See if I can put that back up. Now, how did you not mention that?
Where we were not talking about the captive for life at that point, but now, yeah, I just remembered right now.
Okay, so this whole object right here is a knot, and that's the word chess. So since we're on that, what is this object?
Forget what it is, but for the setep,
Meaning what?
choose.
Yep, chosen, to choose. Yes. So in Ramses II throne name was Ser Ma'at Ra Setep in Ra, chosen of Ra. Setep is in his name. Setep Ni Ras, chosen of Ra. All right, nice. Anything else? Anybody else in the chat? Because we are definitely at a cutoff point. So I guess he said, I never had a bow tie before. That's too corny for me. Yeah. I said bow tie, but I meant a a regular tie. Now bow ties, this actually looks like a bow tie, the actual image on the screen. If it was put in landscape or horizontal, it would look like a bow tie. But anyway, so I hope everybody gets that point, and blame, what was his name, Jeremy, for asking about slavery. Was it slavery in Egypt? Yes. Was it this exact same as transatlantic slave trade and everything? No. Are there overlapping elements? Yes. That's for slavery. That's why you can see, here's people don't understand that the fact that we can call multiple different things slavery in and of itself tells you there's overlapping, which is why we can categorize 4 disparate things or separated things under one umbrella or one umbrella term as slavery. Whenever we do that, we're admitting that there's overlapping. Like, for example, a lion, a tiger, a leopard, a cougar, a jaguar, a cheetah, although they're distinct, specific animals, we call all of them cats, large cats. The reason why is because they exhibit things that overlap, that allows us to put them all in the category called cats. But when we drill in or zoom in on any particular one, we can see the distinctions and separations. We can separate it. Likewise with slavery. Slavery occurred in many cultures around the world. Now, if you zoom in and get detailed within, then there's going to be overlaps and there's going to be some distinctions. So the whole argument of trying to compare slavery that happened in other cultures, specifically Egypt, to the transatlantic slave trade or what happened in the United States, to me is kind of like a silly, endeavor to engage in. And it only makes sense if you bring stuff like that up to people who deny slavery altogether. And we do have some people, I've seen people deny slavery taking place in Kemet. But see, when you do that, you got to get down to, okay, well, how do you define slavery? How are you defining slavery? To what degree? You know, is it forced labor? Is it to force people to work for free? Are they not paid? Are they paid? Are they paid minimum wage? More? Are they actual property? Can they be bought and sold? You know, you get into all those finer details. But to what? To answer what? You know, to answer what? I hope that conversation is not leading up to slaves built the pyramids. I mean, I'm just saying, I hope that that's not where that conversation is going.
No,
Oh,
the
but-
aliens built the pyramids.
Oh, right. That's right. Hey, but maybe the aliens were slaves. Ah, see, you ain't think about that one.
Yeah, it's led by humans. Oh, wow.
Maybe the aliens were slaves. Or the aliens did the enslaving. You know, okay. Interesting. Yep. But anyway, just want everybody to marinate on that for a minute.
There were some questions up top. Let me see.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah, I think AI is far. Okay, so you have Brother Mathis asked, Ujao, did your family lineage come from Kemet?
Oh, my family lineage? Like, what do you mean, my family lineage? Because, well, let me just answer the short and skinny. No.
Okay.
But
Then
I'm saying, but hold up, let me qualify that, because sometimes a question like that, I don't know to the extent of family. So, you know, I'm here. I'm like several generations here in the United States. I'm here in the United States as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. So I am a product of that horrific historical atrocity. That's how I'm here. I'm a descendant from somebody that actually got kidnapped and brought here, survived the trip, and survived enough to reproduce, to have other children, and so on and so on and so on and so on. And I am here. So, but I'm saying, so lineage, because if you want to get into a genetic on the level of DNA and stuff like that, then that's a different conversation. Because when you speak about lineage, most people, when they talk about genealogy, they're only talking about 5 generations, because autosomally, if we're going to talk DNA, beyond 5 or 6 generations, your DNA is unidentifiable. It's unspecific to a person. So the way they track back further than those 5 or 6 generations is linearly, which is through your Y DNA or your MT DNA, mitochondrial DNA. And those stretch back in the past a lot further. And so, but those are not specific either, because the same identifiable genetic material is really traveling through people, because it's passed on from on the Y side, it's passed on from father to son, who becomes a father to their son, so on and so on and so forth. So that genetic material is not a particular person's, unless you go to the beginning of the mutation where you have a common ancestor. And so that gets into a whole nother conversation. That's why I say the short and skinny answer is no. My family lineage is from the South United States. And so you got to walk me back in the timeline. Southeast United States, East Coast mainly, but Southeast, more specific. And then you go before that, then hey, transatlantic slave trade. So anyway, but that's a whole conversation. But yeah, anyway, that's that. Um, and I don't, I like question. I like those conversations, like questions like that, but I can't microwave the conversation. So can't do that. Another thing that when people ask me that, even though they don't ask, and I'm not saying the brother Math is asking me for this reason, but I usually ask the person, because my name is a Rani Kemet name. Ujawu Meneb Edi Ma'at is a ancient Egyptian name. People may assume that I think that I'm ancient Egyptian or that I'm Egyptian. So when people ask me stuff about, questions like that, I in turn ask them, do you think that I think that I'm Egyptian? Because I want to square that away, from the door. I'll say, no, I am not ancient Egyptian. I don't think I'm ancient Egyptian or any of that, any of the above. Like, let's get that clear first. Now let's have a conversation. And usually the conversation would pretty much end. Was there anything else? Because I'm rambling on.
Okay, so yeah, let me scroll back up.
Okay. Majay says, what's the snake for?
Yes, so you're there, yeah.
Uh,
I think probably was on a glyph up that point in the inscription, because we didn't see any other snakes.
Oh yeah. Okay. Let me go back to this snake. There's a snake in here?
Try the lid, probably, yeah. I
Lid?
think it's the cobra in repose.
Oh, I see. Well, let's make sure. So, Brother Majay, if you could clarify for us, what snake you're talking about. Brother Mathis, is Africa the most diverse place on the planet? Yes. That's quick. And then Donnie. Let's see. Word is bond, son. Question. Okay, to the panel. Do you separate Kerma and Nubia from the Kemetu? All right, that's for the panel. So what does the panel say?
The who?
Kerma. Do you separate Kerma and Nubia from the Kemetu?
What is Kama?
Oh, Kerma is a kingdom, culture.
Okay, I get you. And Nubia would be like the south. Okay. So I mean, Kemet is Kemet. They're different locations. So I mean, that's it.
You know what? I think the snake cobra he's talking about is my name, because on my name, because I did have my
Okay. Okay.
but you can I'm waiting for him to verify. So Kerma, anybody else? So you said Kerma and Nubia, you do separate them.
No, definitely Nubia and Kemet. I'm not sure about what Kama is, so whoever knows on the panel will have to get to that. But in regards to the two places, I mean, what is known as Nubia, we know what they mean when they say Nubia will be the south of Kemet. So they're already different locations, so I will separate that.
Okay. Anybody else?
To you, I'll separate them.
Okay. All right. Well, as do I. Separate them because they are separated. So I don't have to separate them. They're separated themselves. So if we just describe what we see, Kerma, for those who may not be familiar with Kerma, Kerma is there's a Kerma culture. There's a culture that's referred to as Kerma, and then Kerma as a single like toponym or place would be the capital of Kerma culture. And that is in what they refer to as Nubia anyway. So Kerma is in Nubia. So Kerma and Nubia pretty much are the same for the sake of this question.
Okay.
And Nubia is definitely different than Kemet. Now, if you're talking about the people, likewise, the same answer applies, because Kemet, we have to understand that Kemet at all times was seen as two regions united. That's why it was referred to as Tawi. Even while being called Kemet, which didn't start until the 11th dynasty, it was still also called Tawi. Okay, you have king's epithets, Neb Tawi, the lord of the two regions or two lands. The word Ta is translated as earth sometimes, land as another time, region. Some context may lean for us to translate as region or whatever, but these are large regions, and within these large regions of Ta or Ta'u, which would be regions, you had smaller villages or cities that were occupied, that were livable, and they were referred to as Niut, as cities. The Greeks referred to these cities as nomes, and the ancient Egyptians themselves refer to the main ones as Sapat. Okay, and so there were 42, and give or take, because depending on what time period within the 3,000 plus years, it wasn't always strictly 42, but roughly 42. So it was 22 and 20. That's how it separates, 20 and 22. So you have two Tas. Instead of saying two Tas, we say Tawi. That's the dual. Tawi. That means two regions. One of them was named Ta Shema'u, which is the region south on our maps. That was the valley. Then you have Ta Mehu, which was be north on our maps, and that was the delta. So the civilization is rightfully called the Nile Valley and Delta civilization, because that's in the spirit of this dualism, valley and delta. So please make sure you respectfully let people know to say Nile Valley and Delta civilization, and try to steer away from just saying Nile Valley civilization, because that's counter to how the ancient Egyptians saw their environment. They saw it as two distinct environments combined, unified. Sama, Tawi. Sama means to unite, to bind, to combine something. Similar to the word kanem, to join. Okay, Sama is to combine, to unite. And this unification. So anyway, I say that to say that you have Ta Mehu, Ta Shema'u. You also have another duality of Ta Meri and Ta Seti. But then you have another region that was not included in the dual. It didn't make the cut. That region was called Ta Nehisiu, or Ta Nehisi. Ta Nehisi is further south. And that region, or Ta, was not included in the unification process. It was excluded. It didn't make the cut. And Ta Nehisi is the region that people call Nubia. That is the region where Kerma culture was. Kerma, the city, was. Meroe, and whatever else. Kush. You hear people talk about Kush, Meroe, Kerma culture, and Nubia. All of that is within the Ta, or the region of Nehisi. Ta Nehisi. All right. That wasn't included in the unification of the Tas. Remember, it's Tawi, not Ta'u. If Ta Nehisi was included, we would be calling Kemet Ta'u. Sama Ta'u instead of Sama Tawi. All right, remember that. And make sure you pass that on. Let people understand that and know. Okay. And then it was called later in the 11th dynasty Kemet. All right, so
and that's when Black people appeared in Kemet.
Right. right? People say that Kemet means the land of black people, as if the word Kemet is referring to the skin color. But you know, that's a whole conversation. But that conversation can be ended in like 2 minutes. It's very, very simple. Let's see. Anything else? Was there anything that I missed? Because my chat is jumped around.
Okay. So yeah, where was that? It was Magi say that it was the snake on the inscription.
Okay, on the inscription. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Let's go back to the inscription. Going back to it. Okay, so that's a question for you.
The snake is that is the cobra in repose, and it is a glyph. Here is functioning for the consonant. Is functioning for the consonant G, with the uppercase D. So that's where if you see what is transliterated at the bottom, that is that we see jet. So you have the cobra in repose, and then below it you have the raised bread loaf, and then right below it there's the glyph for land. It's like a flat line kind of. So that's where we get the word jet, and so it's, yeah, I mean it's a glyph, and the glyph represents the consonant J, or uppercase, what we would transliterate as uppercase D, and that's what is doing in our glyph in the inscription. So nothing else.
So are you sure that the cobra is not trying to attack the milk jug right there?
No. So no. So
that milk jug is really a switch, a light switch, and it's gonna turn on the light bulb that's right here.
no.
The Ra, and Ra is the sun, and that's the light. So it's supposed to be a light bulb, and then it's the switch, and then the cobra, it's the current. It's going
No.
through it, and then it's the ground. Ties really the ground, so that's the ground wire, and you got the positive wire, and then it's running through these two things. See, that's it right there. The two things right there. That's the positive wire. That's the ground wire, and you flip the switch. This is a switch. You go that way to the left and that way to the right. You know, turn this light on, and we turn the light on. You can light the candle right here at the top, and we light the candle. You give life. See, man.
Nah, see, some people always do too much with these glyphs. So this is the one of the monoliterals. It's like the first what we call like the alphabet, because the consonants, those are the basic consonants you will find in any other monoliteral on any other multiliteral glyphs. But you have the cobra, which is like just the uppercase D. So that's how it's functioning. And I don't think we see it most in, you know, like functioning as any other thing, mostly like a determinative or not. But yeah, it's the uppercase D. So it gives the word jet in that instance, which is forever or everlasting.
I like my explanation better. That's my explanation was cooler. That's my explanation, you know, resonates. So I don't know about yours. Yours can't be right. Mine has to be right. No, but that's exactly how people do this, and that's really, like, we're laughing at it, but you know, it's a serious thing that does happen. You know, I've seen it myself where people will look at this and say something similar to what I just did. Say, okay, the cobra represents whatever, you know, and just make something up. You know, once you light the candle, then, you know, you have life, and you can see the eye right there. You can see. And then what you can see outside, you can see the birds. And look, now he's holding a torch right there, 2 arms, because we human, you know, humans got 2 arms. So yeah, we holding the torch. I mean, you could just go on and just make up anything and be believable, really. But that's just not the case. All right. Any last things?
I see Brother Matthews asked, or say, the reason I asked if Africa was the most diverse is because there should be more than one haplogroup in Africa, right?
Yes, the answer is yes. And when you say there should be more than one, there are. There's more than one haplogroup in Africa. So I don't. So when you kind of throw me off when you say should be, when there is. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we another conversation, another session or whatever. We can we could talk maybe outside of the context of ancient Kemet and what we did with the language, but we could have a conversation about that, about haplogroups and lineages and genetics and stuff like that. Yeah, that's I don't mind having that conversation either, but that's a separate thing. But
Yes.
Africa is the most diverse. But go ahead.
Yeah, and speaking of that diversity, even now when, because sometimes I know that's not what was intended here, but what I've experienced also is like when people ask about, you know, um, Kemet and then what was south of Kemet, and if it's separate, and it's almost like if we had given a yes answer to a different set of group of people, there would have been, the follow-up would have been, so you're saying that those people in Kemet were not Black and things like that. So people always try to separate, like, or think that just because there's a difference in the regions and the cultures, then there's a difference in races. Sometimes I've seen even when people go as far as suggesting that because some people captured some other group of people on the continent and enslaved some other people, then that meant that that those people did not see themselves as Black, or so that means that's why they went and captured other Black people, and that's really not the case. I mean, if you understand African, African history and all that, you know that different tribes capture other people from other tribes, and that has nothing to do with having a difference in skin color. That's a difference in culture and what have you, and that's what most people always have to try to need to kind of realize, that when the differences on a continent is not, how you would say here that Black is king, on the continent it will be culture is king. So it's got, the differences, the distinctions are on culture and not skin color.
Yeah, see, I think more people need to hear stuff like that to really understand. And just one thing I'll say on this overuse and projection of Black, right? We have to, man, at the start, we have to understand that our consciousness about Black is a modern social construction. And for us to project that modern social construct backwards in time into ancient cultures, it's really what do you call it? It's intrusive to do that. I forgot the other term that they use, but it's really not a good thing to do. We shouldn't be doing that, to try to project our modern social constructs backwards into ancient times. They didn't have our concepts of race in their consciousness at all. So how we see race, the social construct of race, white, Black, Asian, Oceanic, or however they name them now, is usually 5. Those things and concepts and how we behave and how we see things now today did not exist in ancient times. Now, obviously, ancient people had eyes and they saw differences, they saw similarities and all this other kind of stuff, but they didn't have in their consciousness a social construct that we have today. That's modern. That is modern. In fact, white people did not exist prior to 1681. So the 1600s. And so when I say that, I don't mean the people that are being called white didn't exist until then. But I'm saying that class, that category, that social level construct was not used until 1600s. And so if you go back to when it was used and developed, and you got to look at reasons why and how it was used and developed, then you start to see an unfolding of this modern social construct and what it was done for and who it benefits, the pros and cons and everything like that. But even aside from that, we shouldn't be projecting it back into the past like that. It didn't exist. So every time that comes up, I cringe because it just didn't exist. Culture is king, like you said. Culture is king. And so these are distinct cultures. Kemet was distinct enough to separate itself from what people modernly call Nubia and everything. But people try to make them the same all the time. And that's just not the reality. That's not the historical record. The Egyptians saw themselves differently than their southern neighbors. Now, and then on top of that, Egypt itself, Kemet itself, was not a homogeneous people. That entire kingdom was not made up of one people, one homogeneous people. On the national level, they're one because they're all Remich. They were all nationals of the kingdom, of the country of Kemet. But in its development and everything like that, they were not like one homogeneous one thing. They didn't even see their country as one thing. It was at least two. Tawi, two things. So it was something I was gonna share. Oh, it's another question. Yeah, so let's quickly go through this. So Majay says, not the snake. Okay, we saw that. Okay, Brother Mathis says, what is a nome? Now that's spelled Nome. Nome, is that like a district? And that's absolutely correct. It's like a district. It's like a city. Okay, so nome is the Greek term for these more densely occupied areas. We can say village, we can say city, because when we say city today, we think of, brick and high rises and things like that. Like downtown is a city. We don't think, like, we even have different words today that we use between a city, like, I'm a city guy or I'm a city girl versus I'm a country guy or a country girl. But technically in the country, they have a city. Like there's cities that we would call country, and then there's cities that are cities, to us. So anyway, regardless, I'm saying that you're correct. A nome would be the same as a district. You want to say?
Would be the sapat. I was just gonna say the word that they use on a sesh would be sapat.
Yes, sapat is more of the main ones, but they were referred to as newt as well, villages and cities. All right. So I think that was it. Oh, Donnie says, comment, it would be nice if we could actually send some glyphs that you could break down for us. Yeah, okay. So Donnie, do this in the description of this video and pretty much every video on the channel. You'll see links to our Facebook group, Sabre University, where you can sign up to take the classes, Sesh Netcher website, where it's a resource website, and then so Facebook group. So join if you're on Facebook, join the Facebook group, and post some images, post some whatever. And if you're on Facebook, make sure you send a friend request to everybody, and then inbox images or whatever, and then we'll see. So you can do that. So that's it. Majay says, a modern day Egyptian dude from Aswan told me that the snake glyph was used to represent semen as well. If that's true, that's amazing, knowing that they didn't have microscopes back then. Okay. So what you should do is you should ask that. Well, I'm not sure if you can, but if you're able to, make sure you ask that person to, give you something to bite on, like give you something, like not just to tell you that, but to kind of show you, corroborate it, demonstrate it. Because I'm gonna show something if I can real quick. So if one of y'all have something to say.
Oh, when you just read that, maybe I'm being pseudo, but the thing that went through my mind was because I think I've seen the video on some video on YouTube where I forget what African culture it is, but where they are supposedly trying to treat infertility in a woman, and then they would you know pretty much basically like shove like a snake up on her private parts, like, and go into her womb. And I don't know, and I think from what I've seen, that has all worked in different times. So they use it as one of their treatments for infertility. So I thought about that when when you were reading what the brother was saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen what you're talking about, and that's true. But I'm gonna show on the screen. Switch my screen back over. This is a word for semen in the language. So Majay, this word that you're seeing on the screen, that you should be seeing on the screen right now, is one of the words for semen. All right, and there's a few words for semen in the language. This is one of them. All right. There's the word, and this particular word is metut, or some people pronounce it metwet. Okay, and matter of fact, I'll just transliterate it for you on the screen. So if you want to come visit this again or take a screenshot, be my guest. So it's this word here. All right. Some people pronounce it metut, and some people say metwet. And as you know, there are glyphs. There are glyphs that in the category of D, Gardner category of D, which are human body parts, and the phallus that you see is an actual glyph. All right, so it's pretty straightforward there. And if you want to look up the glyph particularly, it's D53, and there's a couple other glyphs that are similar. So you have the one where you have fluid coming out, which is D53. Then you have D52, which is a glyph before it, without. All
okay. Right. Yeah. Sinet Lisa asked a good question. I think it would be good to go over the stuff was how is semen a feminine word? So you might want to go over the gender stuff.
Okay. That's crazy if it was I mean, that's a good question, because if it's feminine, like, wait a minute, why is semen feminine? Does that lend any credit to women were first and women could have children without the help of a man because real semen came from a woman? I bet you that's what you're thinking, huh, Lisa? You trying to
No,
get.
I'm just saying that because of the bread loaves that are in there that I am familiar with in a feminine word. And because there's two of them in here, that's why I'm asking that.
Okay, now that's a good question. But now let me just say this about gender, grammatical gender. So looking at a word on its own in isolation, it's you technically can't tell if it's what gender it is. And the reason why is because gender is a result of what's called concordance or agreement. And that's a grammar phenomenon where, well, like I'll give you an English example where a verb, the the type of verb you use will depend on the subject or what have you. So, like for example, the to be verb, which is, am, are, was, were. Those are different forms of the same verb, which we call the to be verb. So if the subject is singular, first person, I'm not going to use the word is. The verb is, the form is. I have to say I am,
Yes.
not I is and stuff. So the verb, so that's called verbal agreement. Well, when you see a word by itself, like if I showed you the word is by itself, you wouldn't know if that's the correct one to use unless you see another word that it has to agree with. And so likewise for grammatical gender, you don't, words on their own, you technically won't know which gender it is, but every single substantive in the language is either masculine or feminine, and some can be either or. And so there are words that end, the last consonant is a bread loaf or T, but they're actually not feminine. Okay. So, and there's quite a few of that. And I'll go into that. I can go into that another time, further detail, because I can show examples. I actually have a list of examples of words that look feminine, but they're actually masculine. And they only look feminine because people think that the bread loaf is like a sure shot that it's feminine, but that's not the case. It just means that the last consonant in the word happens to be a T. It's not an added ending.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
just letting you know. Now we can find out if this word is masculine or feminine or not, and the best way to do it is in context. So we, if what other words, so what they refer to as a syntagmatic environment, which is syntax, like the other words that would be around it in use. So we would need a primary source or primary sources, see where the word is used, and then all the words around it. And then we would be able to definitively say, okay, it's grammatically, masculine or feminine. So, we could do that. Yep. So maybe somebody could do that before we end. 5 minutes.
I'm not touching that one.
5 minutes. Chris, Emiket, who else is on? I'm not even sure who's on the panel.
Oh, I think it's Kadim, but he said he was at work.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, what's that question?
No, I'm saying in terms of finding out this word, metut or metwet, if it was actually feminine, we could give a definitive answer. Anybody want to take that up?
Okay, I'll try. See, you mean like find some primary?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if we can do that within the time frame.
Well, in a quick amount of time, though,
I mean, this word could be, it can mean poison or sperm. I mean, it can mean.
Yeah, depending on the determinative. Usually, if it means poison, it's usually a vomiting type of mouth determinative on there, with something coming out of lips. But Sanet Lisa, though, this word is actually, it is feminine. It is feminine.
Okay.
Yep.
It's like an oxymoron to me.
Yeah, but that's a good question to ask, because one, it brings out a little bit of information about grammatical gender, and like I explained earlier, there are masculine words that whose last consonant is T, but the assumption will be that it's feminine only because people see the T, but that's not always the case. So people have to be mindful of that. But this particular word is actually feminine. Now, what does that tell us? What it should tell us is that grammatical gender is not a direct correlation to sexual gender. Okay, grammatical gender is not related to, man or woman and things like that. It's a grammatical gender. It's a grammatical feature. Now let me give it some context so the light bulb can flash in your mind. When we say gender, we think male, female, or masculine, feminine. But grammatical gender includes those, but it also includes animate and inanimate objects or words that deal with animate and inanimate. Those two things are also gender. But we would never, in English, like the way that we're raised and used English, we would never look at animate versus inanimate as two genders, two grammatical genders. But they are, in fact, grammatical genders. So masculine and feminine should not be correlated to man and woman. And I can give real, other examples. So like this is one, this one right here. Then there's another one where it's I believe it's the word shindit. And I may be wrong about that, but it's close because I'm going off the top of my head. But the word I'm thinking of is a word that means a court of men, a group of men, but the word itself is grammatically feminine. But it's talking about a group of men in the royal courtyard, in the royal court. Okay, so so again, just don't confuse grammatical gender with sexual gender or biological gender for that matter.
So it's the meaning of the word really doesn't correlate to masculine or feminine as we would associate it with the particular meaning of the word. Grammatically, that doesn't necessarily apply.
Right. And scholars are honest enough to say that the inspiration of one word being or a word being grammatically masculine or feminine, they don't know. They don't know what inspired that. It's too far in human history to definitively dig that back up. So it's some of it's counterintuitive. Like you have to ask yourself, why is this word masculine and why is that word feminine? And when you try to answer that question, you'll reach dead ends because it's so far back in human psychology that they don't know, and they admit that they don't know that. So because they can't find a pattern, they can't find a definitive pattern that would dictate, okay, this is why this one is this and this is why that one is that. Because the moment you think you found a pattern, then here come a whole bunch of exceptions. And so we're like, okay, well, wait a minute. What's going on here? Same thing we do today. Like, why do people refer to a lot of machines as she, as feminine, female? Like a car is a she. And things, we do stuff like that today. And if you ask somebody why is a car feminine? Can't really put your finger on that, right? Is it because they invented bras to go on the front headlights? That's why it's feminine? Like what? No. I mean, so.
I just think that was a guy thing that men did, that men were the ship's captain or had the cars, and they call it a she, just as like they would oversee the car. It's like a thing, like they would refer to it as their girlfriend or something. I'm gonna go for a ride in my girlfriend. I think it's that because of that.
Okay, well, there you go. Now some things make sense though. Like for example, in certain what we call it, vocations like electrical work and stuff like that. So a plug. So you have a female connector and a male connector. And so we can pretty much tell the inspiration for that, because the male plug or connector will have something that protrudes out, and the feminine plug or connector would have something that can receive, you know. And so we can pretty much kind of see what's going on with that situation. So those are the ones that make sense, you know, in terms of correlation between male and man and woman, male and female. Yes. So anyway, is there anything else? We're definitely at the 2 hour mark. We've probably been there for a while. So I want to end it. And so last go around, you know, anybody have anything closing? Yes, no, maybe so.
Well, I'd just like to say dua to, those who, um, will be watching, and those who are with us on the chat and on the panel, and on the chat and on the panel, sorry. And then I wanted to also say dua to send June, because he provided the inscription that I went through as well. So that's it.
I'll say dua to you for giving that presentation. That was excellent. And we need to do more. We're going to do more. So Divine Words Wednesdays are back on. So we're going to do our best to be consistent and keep it going. And you know, so spread the word. So if you're here now, you know, obviously you're interested in the culture or the language. Even if you're interested in finding out our opinion about things that you've heard, you know, all of that stuff is safe. It's all right, because the whole idea is to maintain an environment where everyone walks away with some takeaways, you know, whether we're sharing, even the questions, because questions can bring about, you know, thought-provoking, you know, things, some things, because we don't know everything. I don't know everything. And I don't hear anybody make the claim that we know everything. We're still learning. Things that we've studied, we could share. There's things we don't know. So questions can kind of bring that out. Some questions we might not think of or whatnot. And then sometimes a question can force you to sharpen the way that you what do you call it, share information. Because, you know, like for example, this entire presentation was done. So MK, you know, you did the presentation, but then based on some people's question, you, in answering their questions, you may come back and revisit the presentation and make adjustments and be like, okay, well, let me add this, let me add that. And so everything is good. So this is a way to expand information, knowledge, and what we all know.
Yes, that is true. I've actually had to go through some of my other translations sometimes and kind of like change a few things here and there.
Yeah. All right. So there you have it. So I'm gonna say peace. I appreciate everybody tuned in, because, you know, we basically kicking this back off, but don't forget to visit the archive. You know, we try to label the videos with the appropriate titles. And our videos are usually around about the 2 hours. So you can kind of scrub through the video or look at the titles and find something that interests you. Make sure you watch it, and feel free to join the Facebook group, ask questions, or bring it up when we go live. Now, from time to time, we'll just go live just to have open discussion with no pre-planned topic, just open mic, and anybody can come in and we ask questions and things. And those videos may be longer. Okay, so sometimes you may see like a 5-hour video in the archive somewhere, and it'll be because we have open discussion. All right, so, but, you know, we welcome. Now, what we don't welcome is all the noise, ruckus, bad character, all that kind of stuff. I don't tolerate that, and I don't think anybody on the panel or the regular panel members tolerate that, and that's just not a good environment to learn. So, you know, that's just not gonna happen. All right, so you
And
won't.
yeah, I wanted to emphasize one more thing. Is like, because you hear people talk a lot about, I got the primaries, I'm showing you primaries, but then you wait for the primary, and it's, primary is like the dictionary. So just to emphasize, this is actually one of those very, very few channels. I'm actually like a channel where everything we do is a primary. Like this, what you saw here is a primary. What you're gonna see on Friday and any other freestyle Friday is primaries going through the primaries. So most people actually don't know what it is actually, outside of the people who watch this channel. I don't think most people know what going through a primary and reading a primary looks like, but it is what we do here, not what you see other places. I just wanted to emphasize that.
All right, so let's do this. Let's do this for a bonus, right? If y'all have time. Y'all have time? Who's on here? So we got Chris, Senator Lisa. Are we still here? So y'all have time? And I know
Too.
okay. So let's do this. Give me 1 second. So somebody has something to say to buy me some time. Buy me a little bit of time here. That did.
Yes, and okay. While you go through that, let's just talk about a primary and a secondary. So primary sources will be like the ones that you get directly from the sources. Obviously, you can't have a primary where you're carrying a whole pyramid, but a primary will be like some of the pictures that we have of those, could fit on a primary, or the papyrus, things you will see at a museum and whatnot. Those are primaries. They're direct sources. And then you have like secondary sources, and that's where probably like somebody is explaining or a written, so there's a written article or something about a primary text, and somebody's giving their takes. In these cases, will be probably you're reading like some literature, translated literature from like let's say the teachings of Ptahhotep, and you find like a translated version of it in English. So that could be considered a secondary source. So just so you know, yeah. So there is a difference, but the primaries will be like the artifacts themselves, or because we're in a different technological era, could be pictures of those things as well.
Okay, all right. Dua for buying me some time. Just want to get this straight. So, all right. So as a bonus, let's do a quick freestyle, or somewhat of a freestyle. All right. So we're gonna I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. So you all should be able to see my screen. Let me lock it on me. There we go. All right, quick freestyle. Who wants to crack at a stab at it? Take a stab at it. Mika, where you at, Mika? Let me get my trusty arrow here going on here. All right, we're gonna make it yellow so we can see it. Okay, real quick. There's 4 steps. Step 1, identify the direction in which the glyphs should be read. Step 2, identify each individual glyph. Step 3 is to group the glyphs into words to be able to look up in dictionary. Step 4 is to come away with a sensible translation. So that's a very quick way of explaining the 4 steps, right? So step 1.
I got it. I got first. This is columns, and then being read from right to left.
Okay, exactly. Excellent. Yep. Nothing else to be said about that. Step 2 is identify individual glyphs. So somebody identify anyone. Just I'll just follow my arrow wherever you are. It doesn't matter what it is. Just identify a few of them. We're gonna try to blaze through this one.
Okay, so you see the conical loaf, that will be the second glyph. And then you have the offering table, the hieroglyph whole tape, and then you have a monoliteral, the mouth, that right there. Yes. Yeah. Anybody else?
Anybody else? Anybody else? Lifts?
Okay, the column you're in now, moot down, which is one of, is it one of the vultures considered? What? Yeah, would
Yes.
be moot.
Yep.
Mother.
What about this one?
Water ripple.
Yep. What about this?
Oh, that's monoliteral. Big leaf.
Yep. Okay. Everybody should identify that. Well, I'm
Yeah.
well. This
It's kind of damaged
yeah,
looking.
I was gonna say this.
That's
But
but I'm gonna guess
okay,
as
let me do it over here.
okay, yeah. It's the palette. So the Sesh.
The what palette?
The scribal palette.
Okay, there you go. You just said palette. Like what? Airplane ahead. Airplanes. Boy, they go. What you
The
going?
makeup palette. Okay, no, the scribal palette.
You said pilot. Like what? Airplane pilot. Okay, so that's correct. All right, so that's step 2. So we're gonna go through this real fast. All right, let's identify a couple of words. Well, instead of identifying words, let's just run it. Okay, because we got to combine step 3 and 4 anyway. So
Okay.
who wants to kick it off? Okay, so Mika said Hotep Dinasu. All right, excellent.
Good.
That's the first part. Hotep Dinasu.
How to diminish you? You have probably. I am gonna guess it will be Rahaketi, even though the R after it something is kind of damaged, but because you have the mouth and then you see Keti after that, so it will be Rahaketi.
Okay. So we have Hotep Dinasu. Now this is where Hotep you have the red loaf and the stool, which is damaged, but it's be the T and the P, which are complement to the T and P in the triliteral capital HTP. So Hotep. So we have Hotep Dinasu.
Rahaketi.
Har Aketi. Okay.
And then you have Wazir.
Okay.
Then you have Kenti.
Mm-hmm.
And then Imanet.
Yes, but not quite.
Imanet 2.
Yes.
Imanet 2. Okay, yeah, the cool check. Yes. So then you have is there anything else I can see?
This is the buzzer. This is a TU bird. So it's a Mentiu.
Meant to you. Correct. Dua.
All right.
Kenti meant to you, and then Inpu.
Mm-hmm.
Neb.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have there? It looks like a UFO and an helicopter right below it. And it's dropping some things, like 3 things I see.
Okay. This is Ra as a mouth, and then Satau.
Okay, Dua.
Okay, that's a place. Okay, what else we have here?
See, could be Hetel.
Now could be it is what it,
Okay. Huther.
which is who?
Heteru.
Okay. You going?
Heret Ib.
Okay.
Not sure what that is. Heret Ib S. Set. I'm not sure. Anybody else?
Okay, let's keep going.
Okay, so you have Desen. And then Peret Keru. Henket. Ka Aped. Shasmin Ket. And I think I see that's the Netcher first.
Yep.
And then I'm not sure about that one. It could be Merret for either milk or oil, one of those.
Oil, yep. Merhet.
Okay, Merhet, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Raneb. No, Ketnebet. Oh goodness, yes. We are now offering formula. Ketnebet,
Okay.
Neferet Wabet,
Uh-huh.
Inkani,
Okay.
and then I think that's an it.
Mm-hmm.
Men.
Oh, yeah, you down here?
Yeah, is it itf or itf or itfu? Itf? Questionable right there. Then men. Mena.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mena E.
Mhm.
What's the little thing there?
A breast, a woman's breast.
Okay. Oh, mena. Okay, so like the nas. Okay. Yeah. And then N. Then we go to the top and you have Sanisu.
Yep.
And then I'm not sure what that is right there. It's not very clear.
Ni.
Yeah, after Yani, that's not so clear.
Okay. All right, that's the word for like a cardinal body. Ket.
Okay, ket F, so of flesh.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, and then Shes E, was it Shes? And then E?
Sesh.
Okay, Sesh, 8
Yep.
F. Then the same name again, 8 F, and then Ru,
Mm-hmm.
Rui, and then,
Yes.
yeah, and then Ma'at Keru, Ma'akeru.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So that's all we have time for. Now that's good. So I just want to do that as a bonus so people can see like what we do on Freestyle Fridays and the fact that we can do it and it's being done, which should let everyone or encourage everyone that you can do it as well. Okay. To be able to read this on the fly. That's what we say freestyle without any books or anything. Okay. And so now let's try to get a translation though. So you know start from the beginning and just give your best translation. Again, freestyling, but give your best translation.
Oh, me?
Yeah, you just
Oh, okay. So and offering the king gives me imitate aku. Yes. Okay. Let's. Okay.
I mean you did all that, so maybe someone else could do the other part. Okay, so because I want to, we were trying to close out. So but that's
Okay.
excellent. So you stopped at where you stop at? I have
We stopped at Makiru.
okay, so up to that point. Now there's more to it, but up to that point for time's sake. So Hotep Dinasu, which is an offering in which the king gives, and then we have Ra Har Aketi. They have Wasir, which is foremost of Westerners, which is Kinti Amentiu epithet. Then we jump to another deity. So we have two deities mentioned so far. So we have an offering which the king gives. Then we have Ra Har Aketi. We have Wasir and the epithet of him, which is Kinti Amentiu, foremost of the Westerners. Then we have Enpu. So that's 3 now. And an epithet for him, which is Neb of Ra Satao, which is Lord of Ra Satao, which is a place which is I believe that would be
Giza Plateau.
say it again.
Giza Plateau, right?
Yeah, Giza. That's how I was looking for the word Giza. So that would be similar to Giza, exactly. I mean, today, what we know today is Giza. So he's the lord or possessor, owner of this particular place, and it is a place. You can see the determinative there. Then we go right into another deity, Het Heru or Hathor, and then an epithet, the one who resides in the necropolis, which is her epithet. And then from there it goes into descend, which is, let me get my cursor, which is descend here. So that they may give. Okay. And so we had a conversation before off air when we're reading these Hotep Dinasut or offering formulas. A lot of people are under the impression that the king is the one that gives the offering to the deceased person or persons, and that's not true. And how we know it's not true is this is an example of a demonstration of showing how that is not true. Because if it was the king that gives the offering to the deceased person, this right here, descend, would not be descend, it would be df, that he may give. But the reason why it's descend, send is a third person plural pronoun, that they may give. And so if it was the king, they would not refer to the king in the third person plural. It would be df, that he may give. But the reason why it's they is because we're dealing with Ra Harketi, Wasir, Inpu, and Het Heru. So those deities are giving. Okay, so make sure everybody understands that. So anyway, so we have that they may give, and then we have Peret Keru, which is an invocative or invocation offering of tea and cat, which is bread and beer. Ka Aped, which is steak and chicken. No, but it's ox and fowl, as is formally translated. But today we would say steak and chicken. We would say bread and beer. We say some biscuits, some what's a beer? What's the popular beer now?
Guinness.
Okay, some Guinness and some Popeyes biscuits, some KFC biscuits, some Guinness or some Heineken. We have some steak and we have some chicken, and then we have alabaster and linen, which are goods, material items that people have, clothing and things like that. Then we have Netcher, which is incense, and then Merhet, which is anointing oil. That's what they used to keep in these jars, fragranced oil. All right. So same thing what we have now, the oil man, the roll-on oil that you buy for $5. They had a whole big jar of oil, anointing oil. All right. And then we have Ket, which is things, and we have Ket in the back, which is all things good and pure or clean. And then for the Ka of, in Kani, for the Ka of, and then we have it, which is it. This is the word father, it, my father. And then we have Menai, which is the word for I believe Menai. Okay, Menai is a word because you see this woman's breast as a determinative. It's a word that is related to nursing, but in this context, in some contexts, it's not necessarily nursing. Nursing is not literal in many contexts. It's talking about nurturing, but not with breast, literally like feeding a baby, but it's also nurturing the mind. So menai is also a word for a what do you call it?
Raised, maybe?
Say it again.
Like raised by?
No. Yeah, similar, but a person that grooms people at a young age. A not a teachers per se, but a person who grooms somebody, trains.
Mentor or something?
Yeah, there you go.
Mentor.
Like a mentor, tutor, and things like that. Okay, so that's what that word refers to. Then you have the word ni, which is of, and then you have Sanasu, which is royal son, or we say prince, and you say of his body, and that was an expression to say, okay, no, this is a person who really is my son, came from
Biological son.
Yeah, there you go, biological son. And then the person's a scribe. Then you have the name itfe. I'm sorry, I said itf, but it e again, and then reri or rori, and then that's the determinative for, ancestor or noble person with the flail, and then Makeru, true voice, and there you go. That's it.
Nice.
But this offering that these deities are given are not only for the ka of this person, but it's also to the ka of, again, Inkani. And then what was that again, Lisa?
Mut, mother of.
Exactly. Mut-i. So we have mut and then e. So my mother. So it's to my father and my mother, who is the wife of Nebipir, the wife and owner of the house. Wife, and you see the what you call it? The lion there. They would normally translate as mistress of the house or whatever the case is, foremost of the house, wife, foremost.
The front part, like hut.
Yeah.
Okay.
That here. Then we have Neb Pair. Then we have what do we have next? Might as well keep going.
Eman. Sa, is that sen or what? Is that an art?
No, that's a single stroke.
All right, okay, guys. So that's with the pair. Okay, so you have Iman and then Sat.
Yep. So when we have that, what's that called? Jehudi's not here to tell us, but what is that called?
Oh, okay. So that would be that's an honorific transposition. So the name of a deity is written first, but so you'll be Sat Iman.
Yep.
As say it.
Sat Amen. Yep. Okay. Daughter of Amen. What's next? Might as well keep it going.
In and then Sa.
Yep.
And then what was before the water reports? Oh, that's the leg. Okay, so then you have
Sa Sin.
Oh, okay. Okay, Sa Sen. Okay, got you.
Their son.
And their son, and then Sa'ank.
Let me switch this over here. Okay. Sa'ank. Cause to live, the name.
Ren N.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go to the Sesh now.
Okay.
As a scribe. And I can't see what the other sign is. What is that?
This is Sesh for scribe, and this for the sake of time, this is the word for a type of scribe. We would say artisan, artist, person that draws. So this person is both, has skills in both writing.
Like Kedu or a different one?
The one that draws. Artisan.
Okay.
And then we have Amen. So Ni Amen. Then the rest of it is pretty much damaged. So, but anyway, so hopefully everyone, enjoyed that. We know we have Makeru down here, so it's somebody's name here, because it's a scribe and an artist or what have you of Amen, and then we have damage, but the name, and then Makeru. All right.
Interesting. Yes.
Okay, so that was quick enough. All right, so I'm gonna say Shem Hotep to everybody. Thanks, dua for everybody. Everybody tuned in. Hopefully, you had some takeaways from that. Jay said Miller Lite, Heineken. Everybody telling on themselves. Somebody gonna be like, what was that? St. Ides, and what was another one? You got Bud, Budweiser, Corona. People don't say Corona. Nobody say Corona right now. What's your favorite beer? Wait a minute. Guinness Stout. Nobody want to say Corona, but I'm gonna say Shem Hotep though. Dua for everybody who's tuned in. But again, spread the word, help support, and participate. All right, so Shem Hotep.